I realize I don't know much, and I'm experiencing a bit of a quarter-life crisis and imposter syndrome. I feel like everyone around me knows so much, and I'm just 21. After years of mindlessly doing things, I am now learning how to learn. I watch movies purposefully and read about history. I am learning about the history of bands, song lyrics, foods, and cities. In general, I am forming my own opinions. At the same time, I feel like I have never been a critical thinker in my entire life. I read online threads and am constantly amazed at how smart people are and how much they know. Did anyone else have this realization late in life and manage to catch up? I feel kind of behind because it seems like those people have been learning so much day to day by talking with others. I regret spending 2,000 hours playing Counter-Strike. Global Offensive. Story 1. Knowing a lot is not the same as having critical thinking. In my opinion, as long as you ask questions, you are on the right path. Story 2. That's pretty normal. At 21, I was barely out of college. I had zero life experience and knew nothing. If you are the kind of person who is naturally curious and takes the initiative to learn, you will be one of those people. I am actually surprised at how many Generation Z individuals do not utilize the internet. They ask basic questions that can be looked up in seconds. When I was 21, you had to go to the library to access the internet, and the information was not as readily available as it is now. Take advantage of it and keep learning. Story 3. It is not the answer you are going to want to hear, but some people naturally understand concepts more easily than others. Story 4. Read and write books. Think in long-form text. Stay curious and keep learning. Try listening to the Great Courses series on subjects you love instead of generic podcasts and YouTube videos. Story 5. There are many intelligent people out there. Accept that as a fact and you will feel less stressed. Pick up some hobbies, and perhaps you have a friend who already enjoys them or is interested in learning about them. You can also talk to like-minded people online or join a meetup for that hobby or something similar. Story 6. A couple of years ago, I had an eye exam, and a green dye was used to highlight flaws. I mentioned that I knew about fluorescent dye, and she asked how I knew that. I'm old, and I read a lot. There is much to discover. Enjoy the journey. Story 7. Read books and articles where people perform critical thinking about subjects. This could include news articles that explore topics, books on historical or contemporary events. When you do, always remember that it is another person's thinking, not a gospel to be taken as fact. Gradually, you will see how reasoning works and begin to develop your own thoughts, taking pieces from what you have read and combining them. First, find what interests you. If you find it boring, finish it if it is short. If it is long, put it down and pick up something else. Then practice, maybe on Reddit or elsewhere. Engage in discussions and share information. Know that you will be wrong sometimes and start from an inquisitive state, not one that tries to present your thinking and opinion as fact. The fact that you are asking this question shows natural introspection, questioning, and a desire to grow. These are all good traits. Do not make the mistake of assuming they are inherent in everyone. Story 8. Read a lot or listen to a lot. Start with a topic you like. Then either dive deeper or branch out into related topics. It is best to start with topics that have some common thread. Make sure you go to the source rather than relying on summaries, so you can form your own personal opinions based on something concrete, not hearsay or someone's interpretation which may just be copied from someone uninformed. Practice speaking out loud and articulating your words so the person you are talking to can understand you. Also, practice active listening. A common mistake is thinking about what you want to say while the other person is talking. Most importantly, don't look down on yourself too much. Those who seem knowledgeable are not necessarily more knowledgeable. You are learning now, and that is what matters. A wise person said the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Story 9. I think we get smarter as we age. I would not worry about it too much. It sounds like you are prioritizing your time in a productive way. Find a topic that excites you and pursue it. Story 10. I highly recommend the video essayist community on YouTube. Many creators there have also started marketing their contributions to the streaming service Nebula. I have not used Nebula myself, but as subscription services go, the marketing describes a reasonable value proposition. Video essay YouTube channels that teach me 3 blue 1 brown, post-secondary math topics explained for a general audience. Philosophy Tube, run by British actor Abigail Thorne. Philosophy topics summarized and analyzed for a general audience. Jacob Geller, video games and their thematic and historical relationships with other narrative art. Big Joel, film criticism and political commentary. Nerdwriter, film, poetry and visual arts criticism. Innuendo Studios, analysis of reactionary right-wing American political rhetoric and arguments about how to suppress its influence. Genetically Modified Skeptic, good faith criticism of religious philosophies, particularly Christianity. Purin, weekly discussion of assorted topics in military economics, particularly as they relate to current events such as Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Sideways, music criticism, particularly of cinematic soundtracks. Story 11. Ask more questions than speaking. Curiosity naturally demonstrates intelligence. When someone asks you a question you do not know, do not be afraid to say, "I do not know." Story 12. Sort of in the same situation at 29. I was always shy and usually playing games at home. I stopped playing games at 28 and started a bunch of new hobbies, trying to socialize more. I wish I did sports, dance, music, game development, and socializing more as a kid. I can't help but feel behind sometimes. Just trying to learn everything day by day, though. I tell myself I just wasn't ready at the time. I didn't have the passion or motivation back then. I do now most of the time. If someone had told me to do those things back then, I probably wouldn't have followed through because I didn't have the right mindset, environment, or support. Or I wasn't interested back then, but I am now. Things like movies and music. Story 13. You need to start asking why you are going deeper into topics and being skeptical. Being self-aware is a great start. Story 14. Be interested in things you may not initially care about. Your brain can absorb many fun facts if you remain open-minded. Critical thinking is important, as there is a lot of unscientific and false information presented as fact. The more you question your own thoughts and investigate things that seem confusing, the more you can replace assumptions with actual facts or updated points of view. With credible information, you will gain better understanding. At your age, many people are confident, but they often repeat opinions or information they have heard without verifying its accuracy. Be cautious of those who are overconfident yet ill-informed. People tend to follow them without questioning what they say. Story 15. Midlife crisis at 21? I mean this with all respect, but you're a child. Yes, I know 18 means adulthood, but we all know that's not true. 21-year-olds are children. I say this not to insult or be patronizing, but to let you know you have so much time to learn. A lifetime, in fact. You still have the prefrontal cortex formation coming to you around 25 years of age. For some, they don't really feel that. For me, it was like a light switch turned on. I realized how wrong I had been. Now, I didn't magically become wiser, but I gained the knowledge of my shortcomings and how silly I had been and continue to be. All knowledge is ultimately self-knowledge after all. Human beings are gifted with a brain that has plasticity, the ability to learn new things, develop, and grow. And as much as we stay static, we also have a tremendous ability to change and evolve throughout our lives. Whether we're 21 or 91, it's our superpower. So no need for crisis. Stay curious. Follow your passions and pursue them to their utmost. Know what's going on in the world. Read books, but read them because you're genuinely interested, not out of obligation. What excites you? What are your passions or hobbies? What's something you have always wanted to learn? Follow that rather than measuring yourself endlessly against people you don't even know. Comparison is the thief of joy. Be your own self. Never mind the others. Read. It's the best thing for you. I hope that wasn't too harsh. Best of luck. Story 16. Read books, all that you can get your hands on. At your age, I had already read hundreds of books. The older you get, the less free time you will have, so start now. Story 17. It is important to keep in mind that your goal is walking a path, not reaching a destination. Engage with things that you are genuinely interested in, and check your ego at the door when you are exploring something new. Spend time thinking about ideas and what you are engaging with while listening to music, and you will arrive at more interesting and shareable thoughts. Story 18. Honestly, you don't need an opinion on everything. Just be curious and ask questions in conversation or when consuming content. For example, I wonder why they changed the name of the Las Vegas airport from McCarran to Harry Reid. Look up both of the namesakes and do a bit of reading. You'll know more than most and be able to contribute to conversations in an interesting way without being a subject matter expert. Story 19. Intellectual conversations most of the time are just people talking about things they are passionate about. I will give you an actual guide for something you can talk to anyone about. Let's talk about film. You are going to watch the film Hot Fuzz. Then you will watch Bad Boys 2 optional, and Point Break. Then watch Hot Fuzz again. Maybe you will feel something new or notice something you did not before. Watch it again, as this movie deserves many rewatches. Take all the things you found interesting about this experience, and now you can talk about it with other people who love movies. Story 20. Read books and magazines such as Time and National Geographic. I suggest starting with real magazines and books. Also, visit museums. There are museums for every interest. Find what you like and what interests you. Start broad and then explore deeper into it. Story 21. You are on the right path. You know what you do not know, and that is key. If you want to have good conversations, knowing how to listen is important. Never stop listening and stay humble. You will not know many things at 21. I thought I knew it all at 21, but at 33 I realize how little I know. You are already ahead of the game by asking the right questions. Story 22. I think the best way to do this is to keep your eyes and ears open. If you hear a word or concept you do not know, remember it and look it up. Story 23. I started reading nonfiction. As a child, I sat each day and read a few pages of an encyclopedia. Some of the information stayed with me over time. Story 24. I did not have this experience, but I know why I did not have this experience. It is because I have always been curious, just in general, about pretty much anything I do not understand, and I had to understand it before I could move on. Little by little, I learned about various things. It adds up to a lot over time. I would say most of it may never be applicable to anything useful, but for most topics, I know at least a little bit about them from before. Talking to someone who knows more presents the opportunity to learn and expand my own knowledge. Be curious about what you do not know. Fortunately, you are young enough to get away with not knowing about things, even common things. Do not be afraid to show that you do not know and ask questions to learn from those who know more. That is what the best intellectual conversations are about. Not showing how much you know, but learning from each other. I am 33, and there is still a lot out there I know nothing or very little about. I am not afraid to show that I know nothing about something. Often, it is the start of a great conversation. I get the satisfaction of learning, and others get the satisfaction of feeling useful. In another situation, I might be the one who knows, and the roles are reversed. It all comes back to curiosity and wanting to understand. Practicing that leads to learning a whole lot of things and thus knowing a whole lot of things. Story 25. The more you question, the stronger your understanding will be. As everyone says, just keep asking why. With artificial intelligence like chat generative pre-trained transformer and search engines like Google at our fingertips, nearly everything can be answered. You do not need to have an opinion to have a conversation. You just need to understand more about a topic. That comes from asking enough whys. The other thing about curiosity is that it cannot be forced. You are more willing to watch a commentary about a topic you are interested in than sit through a 2-hour political speech. So just start with topics you find interesting. It could be something as seemingly trivial as football or music groups. I strongly believe that only uninterested people say, "It is not that deep." If you are strongly interested in something, the rabbit hole never ends. The satisfaction you get when your whys get answered will inspire you to explore other topics. Lowering the interest level, you need to be curious enough to dive down yet another rabbit hole. It is almost addictive, and before you know it, you are familiar with the topic. Not necessarily enough to be an expert, but definitely enough to talk to another person about this particular topic of interest. The fun part about deep conversations is that people tend to have different understandings of the same topic. You get to understand a different perspective without having to go through another round of information gathering to arrive at that perspective. That is why, when you face a contrasting opinion, it benefits you more to try and understand it than to staunchly defend your own. You do not have to agree with it. These discussions are not meant to change your mind, just to give each other another perspective. But if you focus on defending yourself to convince others, you leave without gaining any new information and possibly hurt feelings from an insult fest. A waste of time, basically. I am still learning, but online forums like Reddit are some of the best places to do this learning. It is a less emotionally charged environment, which is not always a bad thing, but it does help to process ideas more easily. One last thing. No one is completely wrong. Even if you tell me 1 + 1 = 3, technically, if it was 1.3 and 1.2 rounded down, they add up to 2.5, which is 3 when rounded up. We just have different amounts of information at hand, which make us arrive at different conclusions. Both can be valid at the same time, just in different contexts. There is no universal truth, but different levels of accuracy to each claim. For example, the Earth is both slightly round and slightly flat. This concept that no one is completely wrong will help in accepting opinions you find difficult to understand. Again, you do not need to agree, you just need to understand. It is more dangerous to blindly agree with everything anyway. You could end up repeating claims you do not have the information to explain, like a plastic box that is really just filled with air. Story 26. Close your mouth and open your ears. It turns out everyone has a subject they are an expert in. Even that electrician of yours has studied electricity and can tell you much more about it than you will ever understand. Story 27. Forcing data into your brain alone and regurgitating it in a conversation is not what makes it intellectual, I would say. While it is part of it, it is not the whole equation. The other part is to engage with the underlying dynamics. I am no great mind either, but in my wheelhouse I am fairly confident, for the sole reason that I have found a proper mental model that allows me to 1. Evaluate new information coming my way, 2. Know where and how to verify if a given piece of data is accurate, and 3. Embed new quality knowledge into the existing web of things I know. This is not universal because building that knowledge base takes time, which is why reading up on stuff is part of it. But who really wants to know it all? That is just falling for the illusion of perfection. Coupled with that, I feel like I have never been a critical thinker my entire life either. Did anyone else have this realization late in life and catch up? That is fine. You are in your early 20s, which is not late at all, as the current culture is not one of great knowledge or intellect. In fact, looking around, you will find that many people never developed any sort of capacity for critical thinking. Those who do did not just get it by privilege of being born into a family of intellectuals. Plenty made the journey themselves, and it may take a lot of time. It may only start in their 30s or 40s. For men in particular, I would argue that for many, the midlife crisis is not one of regressing to childish recklessness, but one of realizing that they did not do what they wanted but instead just followed the manual, only to realize that it is not offering them much of what they actually want from life. I regret playing so much Counter-Strike. Global offensive for 2,000 hours. Do not be. It may not have been all too productive, but wasting a bit of time here and there is good for the mind to unwind. You do not want to turn into a toxic work fanatic who glorifies the hustle culture like some new religion. That would be jumping from one pointless loop into another. Also, there are games that can help you along with your intellectual education. Just take it one step at a time. Remember that just because someone else is a great speaker does not mean they know everything. See politicians and influencers, and build a solid framework for the knowledge you are seeking. Story 28. The shortest answer I can give is for you to learn history. Learning from the mistakes and successes of others is a great way to understand wisdom. Always be open to differing opinions that do not cause moral or ethical dilemmas. Story 29. Just don't get obsessed with catching up and proving you are super smart. Because more than likely, you are probably a fun and lovable person to your friends and family, and you have just not been buried in books most of your life. That is usually the trade-off anyway. Story 30. Stop watching pornography and start watching documentaries. You could also go to extreme lengths and read some books. To gain knowledge, you need to be exposed to information. Story 31. Get out of the house and have experiences. Intellectual conversations happen between people who have both an intellectual and emotional stake in the discussion. Knowing that the Norman Conquest was in 1066 will not help you if you do not find people excited about that information. Find passionate people who will share their interests. Do things. You do not have to be an expert. You will become an expert organically. If you are the only person in the room who has gone scuba diving, performed stand-up comedy, played the tuba, or been to a swingers club, then you are the expert in that moment. Story 32. If you do not know the topic, be interested in what the other person has to say and take the opportunity to genuinely learn from them. Ask them what they watch, what they read, and where they get their information. Everyone is learning from someone else. The biggest difference is that too many people listen only to respond or are not really listening at all. If you are listening, you are learning. Story 33. Are we on the same platform? Reddit is filled with uninformed people. It is very hard to find genuinely smart users here. You might be confused about something. Most people here are just confident while not knowing much. Check out the Dunning-Kruger effect to understand this. Learning becomes second nature when you find something interesting. You can improve your learning speed nowadays massively with artificial intelligences like Perplexity. Story 34. The fact that you are asking these questions means you are much wiser than the vast majority of your peers or society in general. I think a better question to ask yourself is, what does it mean to have intellectual conversations? The answer to that might help guide you as you continue to grow, research, and learn. Story 35. There are a few books you should read: How We Decide, Thinking Fast and Slow, and The Psychology of Persuasion regarding critical thinking. Other than that, forget about trivia and people who partake in it. Choose one topic you really like and learn everything about it. It does not matter how nerdy it is, although things with practical applications are better. It will help your brain become more curious. Save money to travel. There are many cheap destinations and inexpensive ways to get around. Being able to have intellectual conversations will usually make you unpopular. You will find yourself talking to old retired English and history professors. To quote George Carlin, think how stupid the average person is, then think half of the people are dumber than that. If your goal is to be popular, be confident, cheerful, ignorant, and funny with light jokes, not wit and sarcasm. Story 36. Go to lectures at a local university and debate nights. Often they will let you in for free. If you are going to read books, also join a book club to discuss them afterward. If you just absorb information, you will not develop critical thinking skills. For me, I learned the most at university by doing tutorials, discussing things with lecturers, and having my ideas challenged. If you just listen to podcasts, read books, and absorb information, you will not actually develop the ability to criticize information. You will just repeat what you have read. I think that is the most important skill you can learn at university. Anyone can recite facts or read a book. However, only by discussing it afterward do you start to learn how to question your conclusions and how to defend them. Story 37. Why do you want to have intellectual conversations in the first place? Is it about showing other people how smart you are? Story 38. Remember that people mostly discuss things they think they know a lot about. That's why it sometimes feels like people are very knowledgeable. They just avoid other topics. Also, many people don't actually know that much. It just seems that way if you know less about the subject. Don't be ashamed of not knowing things when you have the chance to learn. Be a proud learner and questioner. What helps me a lot is that I really like video essays and podcasts, especially at work. I love to listen to podcasts and learn something while my hands are busy. That's not for everyone, but I really enjoy it. Story 39. If you want to go that path, be prepared to be your own boss. Corporations dislike people who know too much and, more importantly, who think too much. Story 40. Maintain and satisfy childlike curiosity. Every conclusion should lead to more questions. Almost no question is stupid, not only if you do not know, but also if you think you know. Story 41. You may not be smart. Just lean into what you are. Uninformed people discuss others. Average people discuss events. Intelligent people discuss ideas that transcend time and space. Even among intelligent people, there are many layers. Story 42. Make a habit of asking that question. Sometimes out loud, sometimes to yourself. The answer to that question often helps you understand how things work. Why do trees drop leaves in autumn? Because it is cold. But why do trees drop their leaves when they get cold? That leads you to read all kinds of interesting things about trees. I have been naturally inclined to be curious about why all my life and am lucky to naturally memorize basically everything I learn that way. After 30 years, I find myself routinely better informed than anyone except the experts on most topics, at least those that I find vaguely interesting. Story 43. Look at the way a writer works. Stick with what you know. Even if you lived under a rock your whole life, you would be an expert on rock living. You do know things. The question is whether others would find it interesting. Expand your experience in things you are passionate about. Do not waste too much time trying to learn things you do not care for. It is wasted effort. You either find a way to be passionate, or you do not really learn anything. My best example is trying to learn sports when they do not interest you. Either get interested or do not bother trying. People want to have passionate conversations. Being yourself means to delve deep and unashamed into the things you love. If you are passionate, people will listen. Story 44. You just have to clean, dude. Truly is that simple. What even is balance? Cleaning is a skill that can be transferred to many jobs and situations in life. Some say even Jesus was the cleanest person ever alive. Not because he was actually clean, but because he was neutrally balanced in all aspects of life. He knew his purpose and lived every day as if it were his last. All because he was trying to show the world a better way to live. Was Jesus God? No. Jesus is not God. He was just someone born into an extremely neutral family. That neutrality essentially allowed him to experience both worlds. Dirty and clean. In fact, you can think of it like cleaning your self-image. Clean your character, clean your finances, clean your connections with people around you, and clean the way you view the world. This requires strength, and that is where some people stop at balance when it comes to life. Some people harm themselves because they want to avoid eating or consuming things that took other life forms an extremely hard time to create. Whether it is honey or the meat of a cow, all life has the potential to be human, though humans often do not like that. So really, just think of something like, what if there was life on another planet that needs help more than we do on Earth? After all, Earth right now is practically a bag of popcorn with all kernels popped and life everywhere. It would be one of the wisest decisions you could make to clean from every perspective possible to find that neutral point where life feels like you are walking straight toward your dreams. This will naturally give you a great amount of insight about the people around you, including yourself. Every time you feel pain or feel like there is a bubble in your atmosphere, trust your gut. If you keep trusting your gut, your conversations will be more natural. Conversations are like fractals. Just think of them as lightning bolts. That's the nature of conversations. You talk until there's nothing else to talk about. Then you make a fork in the road and decide where to go next. Good luck, champ. Story 45. A good starting point would be to join Toastmasters. Get comfortable with public speaking. Then just start listening to knowledgeable people. I suggest you use your downtime, such as commuting, doing chores, or shopping, to listen to podcasts. Always be learning. An important thing to remember is that many people who appear to know a lot actually know a lot about only one subject. It might be the fishes of New York State, investment vehicles, or Ming Dynasty vases. They may also talk extensively about related topics outside their expertise, and because you lack knowledge on the subject, you will not know when they are mistaken. Your goal should be to know enough about many different subjects to have interesting conversations and ask good questions in others' areas of expertise. It is a very enjoyable way to live. Story 46. There are many factors to having intelligent conversations, and one of the things I do not see mentioned as often as it should be is communication. Being able to properly communicate is more important to intelligent conversation than intelligence. However, it is best to also have intelligent thoughts to communicate with those skills. The best way to do that is to become more curious. Your mind is similar to a muscle. Work it out more often and it gets stronger. Be curious about how things work and you will exercise critical thinking. If you drive often, try to be more attentive to the patterns and tendencies around your neighborhood. Where are the busy intersections? When are they busy and why? Take it further and analyze what you can do to avoid problems and travel optimally. That is just a short and simple example, but it is quite effective to sharpen the mind's ability to anticipate outcomes based on previous patterns. I love thinking about things. Direct message me if you want to talk more. Story 47. Join a book club. Read the book carefully. Listen when others talk about what they learned from it. If you want to read some books on your own, try How Not to Be Wrong. The Power of Mathematical Thinking by Ellenberg, How to Lie with Statistics by Huff, and Logic and Contemporary Rhetoric by Kahane. Story 48. Read a lot. Or, if you find reading somewhat difficult, listen to audiobooks. Watch documentaries. Learn by any means necessary. As for conversation, the key is to listen. Actually listen. Do not merely await your turn to speak. Story 49. Jack of all trades is master of none. Knowing a lot is great, but does not make you smart. If you are worried about appearing smart, I have a couple of suggestions. 1. Be okay not knowing and asking questions. The smartest people ask questions. It's how they learn. People who just want to appear smart do not. They worry about others seeing they do not know something. 2. Check out a book called I Hear You. I find it amazing how many people lack true active listening skills. I can probably share 100 stories. Here are 2. When I would go on first dates, I would always ask tons of questions, mostly follow-up questions. Many times a girl would tell me they felt so close to me. The funny thing is, I did not speak about myself at all. B. The famous Marilyn Monroe had dinner with 2 presidential candidates. After dinner with the first one, she said she was convinced he was the smartest man she ever met. After dinner with the second, she said he made her feel like she was the smartest person in the world. The second won by a landslide. It's not about appearing smart but being curious. Story 50. When I had to write a report for work on a topic I was not very familiar with due to being new to the team, my father told me that it is possible to write about anything given enough time, interest, or knowledge. If you have enough time, then it does not matter how much interest or knowledge you have. If you have enough interest, you do not need a lot of time or knowledge. And if you have enough knowledge about the subject, you do not need much time or interest. That said, it sounds like you are short on knowledge, but you have the time and now you have the interest, so you are on your way. People are telling you to read books, which can be helpful as it will increase your knowledge. But I do not know how much just reading books will help with critical thinking skills. If you want to exercise your critical thinking skills, you need to practice. So how do you practice critical thinking? And how do you make yourself want to continue practicing? Find something you are passionate about so you have some frame of reference. You will have some familiarity with whatever it is already. Find something about it that you want to learn more about. Then dig deeper. Here are some tools to help. Ask yourself the 5 whys about why it is the way it is. Make a fishbone diagram to help identify leads to follow. Use the scientific method to make a hypothesis, then follow that trail. Consider taking an introduction to journalism or communications class at your school or local community college to help with your thought and research processes. Seek out experts and consider why they are considered experts. Expose yourself to other viewpoints, but be skeptical. Always consider the source of the material you are consuming, and understand that if you have competing answers, the simplest answer may be the best. Do not be afraid of failure or of being wrong. It could be that your initial viewpoint was incorrect. Seek the truth. Do not pigeonhole yourself. Be open to a wide variety of activities, as this will only help you increase your capabilities. Best of luck. Story 51. I think being curious is the first step. You are on the right track. YouTube is a great resource to help you think about things in different ways. Watching smaller journalism and education channels can introduce you to new topics and guide you through the questions to consider during discussions. I personally recommend Vox, Answers in Progress, Phil Edwards, Stuart Hicks, Howtown, SciShow, and Kurzgesagt. One channel of particular interest is Hank's channel. Hank Green is one of the most influential online educators. This channel often features him researching topics on camera spontaneously. You not only learn but also observe the process of someone learning and hear him discuss the different considerations when discovering new information. Story 52. Just pick up a book. There are lots of free PDF files available on any topic you can think of. Pick a random country, then get a history book about it. You will spend more time reading that than you have spent playing Counter-Strike. Global offensive. Story 53. Most people are pretty ignorant when they are 21. I have been an avid reader most of my life. When I was 21, I could have a conversation about classic literature, but I always felt like I was missing a lot of detail. By the time I was 28, I had a much more rounded knowledge of the subject and could have a much more thoughtful conversation. At 21, you have not even been online that long. Also, when talking to people on Reddit, you will find individuals who know a lot about a few things. If you want to know about the philosophical and practical history of communism, I am a good person to talk to about it. If you want to know about Indian motorcycles, I am not your person. People tend to steer conversations towards subjects they are knowledgeable about and then include enough tangential connections to make their knowledge base seem much broader than it probably is. Story 54. Most people who can carry on conversations read a lot or at least take in a lot of information from nonfiction sources such as documentaries, podcasts, or news articles. Over time, you will make connections between topics and start to see the world and history more holistically. If all you consume in media is fiction, you will be able to talk about those things like movies, music, and games, but those are typically seen as light conversation and less intellectual. Unless the movies you watch are considered films and your tastes in music are more classical or go beyond simple likes and dislikes into musical theory and composition, there is room for that, I should think. Story 55. Under no circumstances should you view your time gaming as a detriment to being interesting. It only means that you are already interesting to those who share the same hobby. This applies to anything. The most interesting people simply have hobbies that are incredibly common. Almost anyone can chat about cars, food, sports, and so on. It just comes down to how likely you are to meet someone with the same interest. Story 56. You don't become an interesting person by consuming meaningless media. You become an interesting person by doing interesting things. Travel, take action, meet people, develop hobbies that don't involve screens. People rarely care about what you saw or listened to, but they will follow a story about something you did. Experience naturally makes you more intellectual and also teaches you how to avoid being arrogant. And hey, playing Counter-Strike. Global Offensive for 2,000 hours should have taught you something about teamwork and critical situational thinking. This should influence your mind in general. If it didn't, you are very stubborn. Story 57. I honestly do not know. I have always been curious. People always have something they are passionate about and know a lot about. Seems like they know a lot, but they only know about one field. If you are curious and want to learn more, you will know a lot in general after some time. My advice is to stay curious and find something you love to learn about. Story 58. You do not. Those people just use a lot of complex words to sound smart. An actual intellectual can explain anything in a very simple manner. Just talk about anything you have ever taken a few extra minutes to think about, and you will find out that you are a skilled talker like the rest of us. Story 59. To be honest, most of the things those so-called intellectual people say are nonsense. You definitely should not try to be like them. You should have passion for something, focus on that, and ignore everything else. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.